Are you living in a van right now?
I'm not living in a van right now, no, but I am working out of one, as you can tell.
What kind of van are you rocking?
2013 Toyota Sienna.
For soccer moms and digital nomads, apparently.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get this thing going here. You got good clips for me today?
I got some awesome clips, Mark. Okay, well, maybe not awesome. I don't want to get everybody's expectations up prematurely here. They're good clips, Mark.
I'll make them awesome.
Okay, good.
All right, everybody, stretch out. About to get serious.
Are you guys ready or what?
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Man vs. World, and it is a miracle. I have actually, we've done two things in a row without changing directions. Thank you for all of your loving comments supporting me in in another direction change. So, as we can see today, Pete he's on the run. What did you do, Pete?
So Luke inspired me. So he was doing a little tour around the world in a Jeep. The Jeep is no longer with us, unfortunately. Rest in peace. But, or rest in pieces.
Wait, he's not in the Jeep anymore?
No, the Jeep broke.
Yeah, he didn't know that like Jeeps break a lot, did he, when he bought that?
Yeah, he drove it too much.
Yeah.
It's all right. He's got a nice place. But anyway, I'm taking suit because I've got the Toyota, so it's more reliable.
Toyota will keep going.
Yes.
That'll keep going.
Not sponsored.
So you're in this because you donated to Canadian truckers and Trudeau's after you. Is that right?
It's entirely possible. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world today. We had the whole Canada thing. We didn't really, our filmings were right between that, so we didn't get to see and talk much about that wonderful dystopian nightmare of a scenario. Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully all of you guys have kind of caught that. But now Ukraine and Russia are in a war. And to be quite honest, like here's, I talk a lot about like dopamine detoxing and things like that. But there may be times where you can go a little too far because like I have no idea what's happening over there. And as a entitled American, my education, which actually was generally pretty good, it didn't really cover much about that part of the world. Like I got good American history, had some like European history, kind of like a little overview of the world, but I have no idea the history between Russia and Ukraine, and frankly, I just haven't had the time to really get up to speed on it. But I did see something that kind of seemed to encapsulate my feelings. And I wanted to share this with everybody. It was from a guy named Cecil Charles, the guy Cecil Charles tweeted it, but it's by this guy, Neil Oliver. I put it on my Twitter page, but here's what he had to say. Well, we'll just watch a little bit of it, but I thought it was it just caught my sentiments well.
I'll be honest. I don't know what's happening in Ukraine. I don't understand it either. I ignore most of the mainstream media because I don't trust it. In the Wild West world of online, where I graze widely, it feels like there are as many different assessments and explanations of the situation in Ukraine as there are people with keyboards and phones. What I do know is that truth is rarer than gold and therefore harder to find. I also know that whatever Vladimir Putin is up to in Ukraine...
Here, I want to pause it there for a second because I think that's a point worth mentioning right there. It's like one of my big issues is that like it's so hard to find a reliable perspective on anything, especially if you're not like already pretty well familiar with something. It's like you have to like just straight up trust someone to tell you what's going on. But that's made all the so much harder because there are so many different opinions that are put out there so strongly. And you always have to like factor in the reality that there is just straight up manipulation, that there's straight up like just bot farms on all sides that are just like, you know, little Twitter eggs out there who are just like, I can't remember how many it was, like an absurd number of like the most active like Twitter users are just bots that are designed to like advance like one narrative or another. And like you take that and you apply it across like the entire social media internet spectrum. It's just so difficult to get a read on things. Like everyone seems pretty, like a lot of the people I follow, it seems like, oh, it's bad that Russia did this. But then I see people who make cases for it and how it's like United States fault and all this other kinds of things. It's like with something so complex, just like instantly throwing like a Ukrainian flag on my stuff doesn't feel right. At the same time, it's like, all right, if Putin's the aggressor, like chances are he's probably in the wrong. He probably is. There's ways to get around bloodshed, which should have happened. But again, I'm ignorant on this situation in general. And so it's kind of like, why am I ignorant? Because I focus on my life. Like I don't know the ins and outs of, you know, what's been happening in, you know, halfway around the world. And so now all of a sudden I see people who I know aren't much more educated than me. They are gung-ho one way or the other. And it's just, I don't know, I feel lost with it. It's a weird world we live in. What do you think, Pete? Do you understand that situation? Are you following like Ukraine and everything? Do you like know what's going on there?
I have zero idea, but that's probably less to do with my lack of trust in the mainstream media and more of just the fact that I haven't been following anything whatsoever.
Right? Because you've been like working and like doing stuff, and it's just, anyway, yeah, just a little more of this.
The West must accept responsibility for a share of the blame for what is now being suffered and endured by ordinary people there. Whatever Putin has done, whatever NATO and the governments of the EU have done, and I say again, I don't feel anywhere close to knowing what's been going on and what is going on. Men, women and children are sheltering underground on European soil in 2022. Soldiers on both sides are dying. I do know that I don't trust Putin, but I don't trust our leaders or our government or Europe's governments or the governments of North America either. I certainly don't trust any of them to tell the truth. Crony capitalism, in one form or another, has seen governments and corporate entities, some corporates so vast they have more clout than nation states anyway, slide into bed together for the making of profits and the keeping of power. Too many people with fingers in each other's pies.
And that's kind of the other piece of it. It's just like, yeah, I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone who's like giving us information right now. Like just we were talking about the Canadian trucker thing, and it's just there's so much bullshit going on in the world today. And I think that like to bring it back, like we're not a political channel or whatever, but to bring it back to making a point here relevant to us is that I think for so long the idea is like, who would want to be a politician? Oh, you'd have to, you know, either be a power hungry maniac and like morally bankrupt, or you'd have to be crazy. But like the more like the world's going this way, the more certain I'm feeling that like we need to actually start thinking about political office, like the good guys, the guys who care about real values, real virtue, who actually in general are kind of putting their head down and like working and living their lives. I think that at least a segment of us need to start thinking about potential political aspirations in the future. It's kind of like you think back in the day, you know, who was it? Like Maximus from the movie Gladiator, right? He's like this big, you know, Roman general and you know, real tough guy or whatever. But like all he wanted to do is go back and, you know, be a farmer with his family. Right. And I think there's a lot of generals that were like that. You know, they went and they fought these wars because they felt like they had to. Right. And I think that's kind of where we're at today, where it's like that's the war now, the side of politics. Like if there's no good guys left in politics, then we're all sunk. Right. We're all sunk. And so much of what this man versus world thing is going to be about is like, well, what the heck can we do about it? And so gaining positions of power, gaining positions of influence is something we can do about it. And also learning how to speak up when we know we can speak about things. But so often, I don't know, it's like I felt pretty comfortable. I felt like I could, make some comment about the Canadian trucker situation because it was much more close to home, something I could really have an opinion about. And I think a lot of guys are just afraid to voice such opinions because they don't want to be called out. They don't want to have people mad at them. But like things are getting bad. Like they're getting like bad. And unless you're willing to start standing up for what you believe is right and speaking out publicly, well, then things are going to get impossibly bad to the point where they can't go backward, right? We're approaching that point where if like the good guys who are able to see what's happening don't do anything about it, don't speak up loudly enough, then we're all screwed. So please, like this is kind of a somber opening to this show, but I guess that's the big point here is that no more being quiet, no more being passive, no more just like letting the crazy stuff happen and be like, oh, well, look at that. Isn't the world crazy? It's like, no, stop. Say something about it. If you see something that's wrong, say something about it. Like, I'm sure we'll be getting into plenty of controversial issues and stuff like that here on this show, but that's the general tone. There's a book that I read most of it, or I can't remember how much I read. It was years ago, but it was a book about the fundamental like failing of men. It actually goes all the way back to Adam, and the book is called The Silence of Adam. And the point being made was that the reason for the downfall of man was that Adam did not tell Eve that what she was doing was wrong by taking the apple. He was just kind of passively, let it go and, took a little bite and like that sort of thing. And like, you can look at that as the crux of, our issues in humanity. It's like, if you do not say anything, then you are bringing about the downfall of humanity. And so you need to figure out where and in what way you're willing to start sticking your neck out and speaking up. Because if you wait too long, well, then you're going to be sticking your neck out and potentially getting it chopped off. So don't let it get to that point.
That's true. A lot of good people just want to be left the heck alone. And they think that if I leave other people alone, they'll leave me alone.
Yeah.
The people who don't want to be left alone, who want to control you, don't really share that same sentiment. So the people who have good intentions, you're right, they need to start stepping up and they need to start running for places of power like that. Because if they don't, the people who need the power, the people who want the power are going to get it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And speaking of that, here's a clip I saw on Chris D'Elia's Instagram. Chris D'Elia is a comedian who I think is hysterical, and he's got this like new bit where it's like they're pushing him to. He talks about far right Chris, where he like transforms into this like super intense crazy guy. Like he positions himself as kind of like a moderate liberal sort of guy, but then all this stupid stuff keeps happening that's brought out by a very heavily left sort of agenda, and he just says, "You're pushing me to the right," and then it's funny. Look it up. Look up right Chris or far right Chris D'Elia, and you can check that out. But this clip I thought was particularly interesting because this is one of the things that the people in Los Angeles need to really start talking about. So maybe you're from around LA, right?
I'm from the LA area, yeah.
LA area. Okay. All right. So check this out.
Over safely.
Well, Pat, I've got some horrible news. I really hate to hear this, but it sounds like the watch commander just said cancel. We got to let this one go. It's getting too dangerous. We just saw two people.
They're canceling the police chase on a stolen car.
That guy was going over 40 miles an hour, would have hit that woman, and that would have just been one of the worst things I've ever seen. So it sounds like this is a stolen vehicle. Obviously, you don't want crime today, but this is just apparently just a property crime, and they seem to be content to let this one go. The helicopter turned their spotlight on. They're going back to base. All the units have been called off. The watch commander said this is getting too dangerous for the public. They're calling it off.
Well, this is
Get
their
it.
decision.
You're the
We were just talking
cops.
about,
Imagine that's your
so
car.
one good thing
And you're watching it on the
we
news and the
can
cops
obviously
just
consider
give up.
what would be the best outcome and what would be the worst outcome, and we almost saw the worst
Get him.
outcome a couple of times. So
Yep.
To be honest,
So-
I'm kind of surprised they chased him to begin with.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they were like, keep it. It's fine.
Like, where are the people, where are the men standing up being like, sorry, we pay your entire salary. Do your damn job. Do your damn job. It's like, oh, that he was going over 40 miles per hour. He could have almost hit that woman. It's like, okay, sure. That's what happens when criminals break the law, right? Like they put people in danger, which is why you got to catch them, right? Now, let's think a little bit harder, police commander. It's like, if you allow for this sort of behavior, do you think that will create more dangerous incidents or less? Where is the common sense in any of this? It's like, you have to stop it. Yeah, maybe people get hurt in the car chase, but if you allow a world where car chases don't happen because you're allowed to steal cars, I think that's going to be a much more violent world. Don't you think? Am I crazy here? Or am I just not getting that West Coast mentality?
I don't think you're crazy, Mark.
Thank you.
Let's talk. Let's lighten the mood a little bit here, okay? Because I got some more lighter clips here to share with the people, okay? So
Okay.
the first one here, everybody's favorite minimalist. What's his name? What's his name? Matt D'Avella. I wanted to say Chris D'Elia there for a second. Matt D'Avella did a quick video on the Goldilocks rule, and I'd never heard of that before.
All right. Let's check it out.
Have you ever heard of the Goldilocks rule? It can teach you everything that you need to know about why you give up when tackling a new project or skill. If you want to reach peak cognitive focus, you want to work at a level just outside of your comfort zone. When author James Clear talks about the Goldilocks rule, he often relates it to tennis. You don't want to play against Serena Williams because you're going to get annihilated. You'd get so disheartened that you'd want to smash your racket like McEnroe. But you also don't want to play against a 5-year-old because you'd get bored to death. You need to find your personal sweet spot. Experts say that your sweet spot is about 4% higher than your level of competence. Not too easy, not too difficult, just right.
When it comes to selecting your goals, a lot of times you don't have a fine-tuned like difficulty slider. You know, this isn't like Elder Scrolls where you have like, you know, you can just slide it up to exactly how difficult you want, you know, your current situation to be. You might have some control, but for a lot of things, you don't at all, right? And so the better thing, I think that's more important, is to make sure you've got a compelling vision. Like, you have to have something that you're willing to go through hell for. That's a little bit harder to find, but you can do that work. There's a process that you can go through. And a lot of it comes down to like really figuring out like, who the heck do you want to be? Like, starting just at an existential standpoint, like, do you believe that you have inherent worth and dignity? Do you? Like, you know, if you're a Christian, then you believe that you are literally a son or a daughter of God, okay? And you look at your life and you say, well, what is in alignment with that and what is not? Well, you know, staring at butt cheeks on Instagram for 3 hours a day, that's probably not in line with it. So like maybe, you know, you gather that and all the other shit that's like not representative of the person that you want to be. And you say, all right, I'm going to do a giant burn of that. I'm going to do a dopamine detox. I'm going to cut all this shit out. Okay. And that vision of that cleaner you, well, you getting rid of all of that, that's way more than 4% higher than your current capability, right? Like, this is one of the things I do all the time is I help guys like quit porn and stuff like that. In fact, quitting porn is so hard for most guys that that's the only thing that they can focus on. And that is usually an order of magnitude outside their realm of comfort. But if they're given the right tools and given the right community, which is the stuff I seek to provide guys with, you can do it. But the vision can be so compelling that it can draw you out to face those really challenging things. And that's the key to like real I think, long-term success is like knowing when to really go for those big stretch goals and how to set them up properly, because it's not always completely obvious what it is, like how to do that. The way that I like to aim for, like if we have some control over it, like with my clients, instead of just aiming for 4% outside your realm of competence or whatever that guy said, like I think a better way to, like an easier way to feel it is like, are you operating at about 80% excitement and 20% fear? I think most people can feel that out a lot better than 4% better. Okay, 80% excitement, 20% fear. That probably means you're doing something that is certainly outside your comfort zone, but it also stands to offer you a pretty big win. And so if you have some control, then you do that. And if you don't have the control, it's like you're facing down just like a really rough situation, then it's about adjusting your internal narrative, your internal commercial, so that you can get as close to that kind of ratio as you can. And so it's like if you're in a situation where it seems impossible, well, guess what? You're not going to succeed in that. You have to believe that it's possible on some level. You have to believe that your system is at least followable. And so that means you got to do some work. You have to do some thinking. And this is why people, like to hire a coach, because it can be, most people are so uncomfortable with problem solving in a real world sense that they need some help with it, and even if you can't do a coach, find a community. Like that's what we do in the Vanguard here, is like guys are constantly coming there with their problems and they're workshopping what should be my solution, what should be my mindset, what should be my approach to dealing with this situation. Because if you don't dial it into something that you believe could be good, could serve you, and like is doable to at least like, a certain realm of difficulty, then you're sunk. You need to have that kind of vision that you can believe in. And so I think that's really the more important thing than just trying to find your 4% thing outside your comfort zone.
That makes total sense. A lot of guys, they shoot for that big goal, like let's say quitting porn, right? But they go about it in the wrong way and they end up not finding success. They end up burning themselves out. So I can see where the 4% comes in, but I can also see why what you're saying makes sense.
I mean, the 4% was like definitely just created by some guy in a lab who was measuring people. And then, no, I don't think it was a random number. I think it was like they're doing like some kind of game and they were able to quantify exactly what 4% was. And they're like, oh, here it is. And then they're like, well, no person has a bearing of like what 4% outside their comfort zone is, or their capacity is, because they don't even know, like, am I at capacity? Am I not? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's like just a completely unhelpful number. So it's just like, you got to make it something that they can feel a little bit more. So I don't know, 80% and 20% like fear or excitement versus fear, I think is something that people can sort of feel in them a little bit.
Yeah. And when they have that nice combination where they're a little scared, but they're mostly excited, like you pointed out, they still have to go about it in the right way. This is a perfect place actually to move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, because it kind of ties in with this. How do you say his name? Is it Hamza?
Hamza, yeah.
He did a video, he did an interview with Chris Williamson, I think it was. And he was talking about how guys have difficulty when they're shooting for this, top level goal of like quitting porn, which as you say is the rite of passage for the modern man. And they go about it in the wrong way, and it seems like he's kind of voiced that. So I want to get your take on it.
All right, let's see.
Talk to me about nofap.
I think the online space has got this like different perception of what it is, in my opinion. I think a lot of people think like it is, the levitation and it's going to make you amazing and everything. And you certainly will see a very, very significant change in your life if you're one of those like hardcore wankers who are going multiple times a day, messed up porn and everything, which to be honest, like there's a fair amount of guys. And I have the authenticity to say, yeah, 100%. I was not that messed up, but like I was one of those guys, right? And so when you go from this like multiple times a day to like not maybe let's say once every 3 days you're masturbating, there's quite a big difference. And that's like, I think as far as a lot of the benefit does go. After that, there's like this cult online which is telling you, okay, if you ever touch a dick again, like that's the perception that they're pushing onto young men. If you fap again, you've lost the benefits. Which that blows my mind because that's so unhealthy to tell young guys. It's like telling an obese guy, okay, yeah, get into the gym. You should go every day. If you miss a day, you lose all of the progress. That's heartless, man. That's so like, I've come across more young men who have been pained by nofap than who have just like got problems with like porn and masturbation. Yeah, because they get like this existential crisis where now they feel like more of a loser because they keep failing nofap, and it's just like simple habit science. I always ask them the question like, when did you start jacking off? And they'll say, age 13. They're 19 right now. So 6 years you've been building up this habit. You found nofap a few weeks ago. 6 years you've been building it up, and you just think you're going to break the habit just like that. It's like, at least for me, it took me about 5 years to get onto like nofap, where like it's honestly like, it's not in my life at all. I don't even think about it. I often forget that porn and masturbation is the thing. But I was so hard on myself for the first like year or so, thinking like I should get to day 90 or something, because it's not just about like, the discipline and willpower. It's about, bro, like we've been building up this habit for like 10 years, man. It's like, it's going to take some time to like produce it.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. But it's something I agree with. I actually had an interview with Hamza that I did. He ended up not wanting to use it, but I'll probably do something again with him at some point because he's a cool dude. And
his editing is hilarious.
Yeah. I know he's like a hero to a lot of the younger guys. I think I might appeal to a slightly older audience, but I know a lot of guys really look up to him. And this like idea of the nofap superpowers is something that I've definitely encountered, and it is kind of an issue, especially the younger the guys get, the more they take nofap and quitting porn from like a very like, this is my religion now kind of thing. And like, you can screw yourself up with that mentality, especially if like you just expect it to be like something you can just stop. Like that's not the way it works. Like you're saying, it's like if you've been doing this for years and years and years, you're not going to be able to just stop on a dime. This stuff is like almost like cocaine. It's like it's pretty intense in terms of how it can be addictive for your brain. And if you don't have a really proven, reliable process, which no one, I feel like, except for me has, and that's a pretty bold statement, but I've literally been in this game longer and more effectively than anyone else that I know of. I challenge someone to tell me who's more qualified to speak on helping people quit porn, because I'm, as far to my knowledge, I've been the most successful and I've worked with the most people. So like, it took me years and years and years of dedicating myself full time, working with dozens of individual clients, hundreds actually probably at this point, and then thousands of people going through my programs and having me iterate it and blah, blah, blah. And finally, I was able to distill a really, truly reliable process for quitting porn. And like, you're just not going to get it if you wing it. Okay. And guys, they do this. And the big mistake they make is they enter into a situation of conditional worth with themselves. And what they do then is basically they say, if I'm clean from porn, then I'm good. If I relapse, I'm bad. And this is a really screwed up kind of scenario, because once they relapse, they loathe themselves. And because they say, oh, well, since my worth is in alignment with my morality, it's like, I'm only as good as how many good boy points I earn. Guys do this with religion too. It's like, I'm only as good as how well I avoid sinning or following the commandments or doing the whatever. And then the problem is no one's going to be perfect. And when you're imperfect, then you lose your own sense of worth. And once you lose your own sense of worth, you stop being able to sacrifice for yourself. Because that's the thing, is like, in order for you to get clean from porn, you need to sacrifice for your own benefit. And the only way that you're going to be willing to sacrifice for your own benefit is if you think you're worth the effort. So if you tie your worth to something that goes down, like your moral status or your nofap status, well, then all of a sudden, you're also not worth the sacrifice of getting back on the horse. Right? And so guys really screw themselves over with this. And this is why, like, for any sort of deep habit change, what you need to do is learn how to tap into an unconditional sense of self-worth and dignity, where regardless of how good you do or how bad you do, you are worth the effort and sacrifice of showing yourself proper love. And until you get to that point, you're not going to get anywhere. And even if you do, okay, people can kind of force themselves out of fear. It's like, oh, either you do this thing or else you suck. People can make progress like that, but the issue is it never actually feels like progress because it always feels like they have this massive weight over them, this massive water balloon that is about to get like pricked and pour all over them because they know that their sense of self is only sustained by prolonged perfection. And like, that's a horrible way to live. And really what you want to be moving to is a place where it's like you're constantly just seeking, you're already good. There's nothing else you need to gain. Nothing can make you better and nothing can make you worse. But all you can do is seek to bring your life into greater and greater alignment with that goodness, right? And the extent to which you deny that goodness, yeah, it's going to hurt. Because if your nature's good and you do something bad, well, that's going to hurt, right? Like the nature of my finger is to bend this way. If I bend it that way, it's going to hurt, okay? Same thing with your soul, okay? You're good, so you doing bad things hurts you, but it doesn't actually make you less good. And this is like that fundamental nuance at the heart of everything, that if you don't grasp this, then you're screwed. And really, like, speaking of the nofap benefits there, it's like the real benefit, like, yeah, you're going to see some big changes if you're a heavy fapper and whatnot. Like your dopamine's going to start coming back. You can be more motivated. And even if you're a more casual user, that kind of stuff can be a significant improvement. But the real benefit is that you learn how to trust yourself again. You gain this sense of dignity. And if you go through a process similar to what I do in my Reforged Man course, then you're actually going to be coming out on the other side exponentially more powerful. It's like you've been walking around you've been like working out in this intense gym. That's why I call it quitting porn the rite of passage for the modern man, because it's like once you do it, you're far more powerful, have a much higher sense of self-control and dignity and willpower than really almost any other guy in history. Because porn is such a unique and weird problem, it's just so accessible. It's like the drug in everybody's pocket. The fact that if you can learn how to control yourself in that scenario, you gain a certain kind of self-mastery that actually wasn't really available before today. I'm not saying that other guys in ancient history who lived hard times weren't tough. Of course they were, but they never had that kind of temptation. They had a different kind of strength. And I think the modern man has access to a new kind of strength that is much more pervasive moment to moment, even in the face of intense temptation. And that's really what you gain. Because once you have that, well, then the world's your oyster. You can get anything, because nothing really is much more difficult than that, I don't think.
All right, guys, I got a fun one for this next one, okay? Mark, I know you've been eating a lot of weird things lately, or at least... And I know one of your biggest inspirations is Liver King himself.
Okay.
So right. I want to... So, interestingly, Liver King exposed his stack.
Oh.
Now, for those of you who are not privy to the bodybuilding terms, stack refers to trenbolone sandwiches on top of Capri Sun juice boxes. Juice. It's talking about steroids, as you probably could have guessed. So, yeah, let's dig in here.
Okay, let's see here.
Liver King here. A bunch of primals keep asking if Liver King is natty or not. I decided to really face this head on and show you my stack. I stack liver and bone marrow every day. I stack the sun and the earth every day. I stack blood-burning workouts twice a day, every day. And if you stack the 9 ancestral tenets, you too can express your most dominant form. And by the way, this was my cameraman idea, so tip of the hat to him. I don't even know where to get this stuff. But I will tell you this is filled with maple syrup. There's nothing better than that. Liver King out.
Oh, God. Okay. So, okay. Liver King, first of all, okay, let's talk about the good of Liver King, okay? Because there is stuff I like about Liver King, okay? He generally promotes a healthy lifestyle, okay? He's all about working out, connecting to, I guess, like nature. He's about hunting your own food and going on these sacred hunts with his sons. And, he eats a lot of raw liver, which is why he's called Liver King. And he is a pretty insane athlete. Like, juice or not, you don't get that way by accident. Some people think that you can just do steroids and you'll look like him. It's not how it works. Not at all. So like he is very interesting in some ways, and he also inspires a lot of people. Okay, that's a good side. The part where he loses pretty much all of that value to the point where I don't give a shit is because he lies. And he lies about doing steroids because he's definitely doing steroids. Like you can't look like that naturally. I just don't think it's possible. I mean, like once you start getting the turtle shell abs sticking out like that, you're pretty well on the juice and whatnot. Not saying you can't get big and strong without steroids. You can, but that's a different level sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure he's also like, what is it called? He won like, what are they, like barbarian games or some kind of like competitive thing, like high level, like, competition where it's like strength or endurance or something like that. Anybody who's winning those things is on gear. All right. That's just the way it works. Like you're not, unless you are really hardcore testing. And even in those scenarios where you're hardcore testing, people are still going to be sneaking stuff in. So like, I think it's just so unlikely that someone like him is actually, not someone like him, that anyone is that much of a genetic outlier, So the thing is like you ruin, like in a lot of ways, he's like a branding genius. He's like built for Instagram. It's like all hype. It's all extreme shit. And it's just like super clickable and interesting. It's like, oh, what the heck? This guy's eating raw liver. That's cool. I like it from a business perspective, but then from being able to take him, like if he just told the truth, he's like, yeah, part of my image is I do steroids and that's like what I do. And it's part of my marketing. I like it. It's a serious thing. You should really not do it unless you really think it through and blah, 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 gets into all of that. Otherwise, he's just setting up false expectations for people who are actually gullible enough to believe him. And they think that they're going to be able to look like him. It's just like, come on, man, there's enough bullshit out there. Like, let me be someone that I could like. And now I can't. I just have to laugh at you. And I can't laugh at you and support you. I just have to laugh at you and not support you. Because I would like to support this guy because he does talk about like eating healthy and stuff like that. And like, to be honest, I'll be real with you. I've started eating raw liver. It wasn't entirely because of him. More, what's his name? Paul Saladino was more inspiring than that. But even he's annoying with the Instagramminess of his approach. But I did research on it and I tried it. The raw liver, it is like the best cup of coffee I've ever had. I was blown away by how much of an impact eating an ounce of raw beef liver had on me. Because like I heard people say, yeah, it gives you an energy rush. And like I've done a lot of nootropics. I've messed around with all kinds of like stimulants and caffeine and nicotine and, all these different things. And I'm very like aware of my body and everything like that. And the raw liver was legit. And it is. I'm still taking it. And my energy levels really haven't been better combined with like a mostly kind of like carnivore diet, at least during the day. Combine that with the liver, it's like my energy levels have never been better. Low carb kind of messes up endurance training a little bit for me at this point, but still, it's like, so there's stuff to all of this, the whatever the ancestral tenets are. I have to look them up. They might be hilarious, but like there is truth in some of this movement that's going on. Like maybe the big lesson here is learning how to wheat and weeds things. Like learning how like anything you see online that gets a big pop, there's going to be something real there. There's going to be something good there. Otherwise, it wouldn't get a reaction out of people. If it was just distasteful and garbage, then it's just going to be pretty much ignored. But if there's something to it, like if it's getting a big pop, then there is something that is powerful being looked at. Now, the cheapest way to access that is through sexual sensationalism, like, crap like WAP and like, what was that show on Netflix? It's like the island of just like hot people, and it's like they're not supposed to like have sex with each other, else they lose money for everyone. What the heck is hookup? I don't remember what it's called. But like those kinds of things, they all get attention because the good thing at the center of it all, it's sex. Okay, that's the cheapest way to do it. Sex is good, and that makes people interested, and then then they add a bunch of bullshit on top of it. But like if you see something popping off because it's not sexual, at least overtly, like Liver King. Okay, I hope to God his OnlyFans does not come out, but there's something good there. There's something interesting there. There's something worth looking at, I think. And so, find out the good stuff, and then throw away the rest of it. And this is disappointing to me, Liver King. And if you hear this, please just be honest with people, so then I can like you again. And in fact, I would even do a video talking about how badass you were for throwing down, getting rid of the stupid lie, and just like telling the truth. I think that would be so cool. So, invitations out there. I'll, I'm sure that I'm sure that means a lot to you, but that's what I want.
You know who's really good at kind of finding the kernel of truth, or whatever you want to call it, in big cultural movements, is Jordan Peterson. In fact, the Chris Williamson interview he just did was excellent. And in that, Peterson's talking about how rap music, even though it covers all this, all these things that Ben Shapiro would scoff at, right?
Sure.
All these horrible topics, in the root of it, he identified that the reason why it draws the attention it does is because one of today's most deadliest modern weapons is speech and voicing your opinions and being articulate. And rappers have a unique ability, especially guys who freestyle and stuff, to be able to put things together in a way that's frankly incredible. So whether you like the music or not, Jordan Peterson takes that and he goes, oh, here's that little kernel of why he thinks, at least, this works, Same thing with, that's why he uses like the Harry Potter books, Disney, all of these massive cultural movements as jumping off points to dive into that deeper truth that cultural movement is kind of hiding, really, in a way, and it's wrapping it in a bunch of BS.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the if you're going to put it into the the religious Christian perspective, I can speak from this because I'm a Catholic and whatnot. The idea in Christian theology is that Satan cannot create anything. All he can do is take a good that already exists and twist it and distort it. And I think that's the way a lot of our culture works today, is it finds something that's really, really good, and then it just twists and distorts it. And so I think the role of the modern man in many ways is to figure out what needs to be burned off and what needs to be saved. And this is not always immediately obvious, right? Like sometimes you really need to dig into these things and think about them and not jump to reactionary sorts of stances, which is what most people want to do. They want to be extremely polemic in terms of how they categorize, how they respond to different things. And in many ways, Jordan Peterson has stood out and made his name because he refuses to really do that. He actually wants to look at the nuance in things. And in some way, that actually has made him an extremist. And so I think there actually needs to be more of that in today's culture, because everybody just wants to draw their line in the sand and then cast arrows at the people who are not, on their side of that line. And I think a huge part of it is that that's what social media incentivizes. We're just like looking for someone to confirm our own biases with as much vitriol as possible so that we can feel as morally superior in our own views and secure in our own views. Because it's like, if your views are being challenged by some evil other, well, then there's no time for introspection. There's no time for you to really look at yourself. It's like there's a war on against the things that you hold most sacred. And this person here, they're shouting pretty loud about it. So maybe I need to get their help. Maybe I need to comment on their page. Maybe I need to go after the person that they're going after. And I need to just blah, blah, blah. It's just like all that's just like, it's just distraction. It's the illusion of progress. It's the illusion of real human interaction, but nothing's actually happening. You're just spinning around in a masturbatory online echo chamber, and you're not doing anything. You're not contributing to your own life, and you're definitely not contributing to these causes that you claim to care about, when usually you never even heard the other side of the argument. This is one of the things that drives me the most crazy is that, like, if you can't argue the opposition's argument, at least as good as they can, then you have no business trashing it. It's like you got to understand what they actually stand for before you demonize someone. So that's a side rant, but anyway.
All right, guys. I got one more thing for today to watch, and it's about championship mindset. You know, Mark, I know you really are a fan of the MJ documentary. And this kind of touches on that, but it also talks about Kobe, and yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
All right, let's check it out.
There's an interview where Michael Jordan talks about Kobe versus LeBron, comparing them both as players.
In terms of dominance of the game of basketball at this stage, is LeBron. Championship-wise, Kobe Bryant. He wants it so bad and he's willing to go to the extreme, you know, guarding a guy, guarding the point guards at the age of 34, playing 38 minutes, 40 minutes. That's ludicrous. I think this is what he's battling with. It is what it is. He's cursed as much as I am.
What Michael Jordan describes the things that Kobe Bryant did to win, he describes them as cursed. They weren't blessed. He's blessed like me. That's not what Michael said. He said he's cursed like me. Jay Williams, an All-American point guard for Duke and Bulls point guard, expanded on this.
So, I'm going to get there at 3 o'clock, and I want to make sure I make 400 made shots before I go back into the room, and then I sit in the sauna and I get ready for the game. So, get in the car, get to the gym, get there, and as I'm walking onto the court, who do I see? I see Kobe Bryant, already working out. So I put my sneakers on, and you ever get lost in what you do where you end up like, wait, it's been an hour and a half? Like I'm here, I'm in it. So once I set my foot across that line, I started working out. And so I worked out for a good hour and a half. And when I came off, after I was done, I sat down, and of course I still hear the ball bouncing. I look down, I'm like, this guy's still working out? He was working out, it looks like he was in a dead sweat when I got here. And he's still going. And it's not like his moves are nonchalant or lazy. He's doing game moves, I sit there and I unlace my shoes. I'm like, I want to see how long this goes. So I sit out there and watch. Another 25 minutes. And he got done. I said, okay, I think I've seen enough. Go play, come back, get in the sauna, get ready for the game. That game, he drops 40 on us, okay? And after the game is over, I'm like, I have to ask this guy. I have to understand, why he works like that. Right. So after the games, I'm like, hey, Kobe, why were you in the gym for so long? He's like, because I saw you come in. And I wanted you to know that it doesn't matter how hard you work, that I'm willing to work harder than you.
Wow. Interesting. So, I've used Michael Jordan as kind of like my example for this for a while. And I think, Kobe Bryant might fit into the same thing. I don't know enough about his mentality around all of this stuff. I haven't seen enough interviews with him. But the thing with Michael, I can say for sure, is that he comes from what I would call, not for sure, you can never really know another person's heart or whatever, but from what I can tell, he comes from what I would call a vacuous mentality, where it's like he believes that unless he's number one, then he's not good enough. And this is a very powerful mindset. This is one of the prime ways that you can generate motivation in life, is you tell yourself, unless I succeed, I'm a piece of shit. And it's essentially like you scare yourself into achieving dominance. Now, the issue with this approach, there's several issues. The first issue is that most people, they can't take it far enough. They'll use it when they really need to. If they have to actually study for a test, it's like, shoot, I've been procrastinating so long, but if I get this grade and it's really this bad, well, then I'm going to hate myself. So, all right, fine, I'll finally study. It's the last minute. I'll just do something. That's how most people use this power. But if you want to do it to the point where you're very proactively using it, you have to really dehumanize yourself. You have to turn yourself completely into an object that is only as good as the status you acquire. Basically, it's the opposite of having dignity. It's you remove all of your dignity and you say, the only way I will accept myself is if I win all of these little good boy points in some field or another. Either it's I make all the money, or I get all the women to sleep with me, or I make, I'm the best basketball player, or whatever it is. And so you can, if you're willing to go to that sociopathic sort of extreme, then you can push yourself unbelievably hard. And this is what I saw in the Michael Jordan documentary. Now, this is not the only way to push yourself extremely hard. The other way, and we're kind of talking about it earlier in the podcast, is like to start with this idea that you're actually already inherently good, and that nothing you do will make you any better or any worse. So there's this deep sense of security that you start with. But then from there, it's about extreme congruence to the point where it's like, if I am this good, then I want every single facet of my life to reflect this goodness. It's a radiant versus a vacuous mentality. Like that other mentality is like, I'm not good. I need to earn these points to get good. This is like, I'm so good that I want that goodness to burn out through every cell of my living, my life. And so you can learn how to do that as well. And I think that's the much better approach. And so I don't know enough about Kobe to say which one he was operating from. But that's really the key to all of it, is like, I think learning how to wield your dignity in this way, learning how to gain such a powerful sense of your own inherent worth, that's what's going to give you the most sustainable sort of fire, because you can only use that, like the downside of this radiant approach is that you can only use it to pursue truly authentic ends, right? Like you can, like, is it worth sacrificing everything for a basketball game? I don't know. I don't think so. I wouldn't be able to do it. It wouldn't be worth that much to me. But like a career that maybe helps lots and lots of people, a true vocation that I feel called to in my heart, like this work, yeah, I would sacrifice quite a bit, but not everything. I'm not going to give up my kid for it. Okay. Like this is the kind of stuff where it's like you can tap into that radiant power if the goal is aligned. So it's like if you're stuck in a job you hate, you're going to have to use that vacuous energy if you want to excel at it. Or you're stuck in a career that like you're only in it because of your mom, to make your mom happy. Yeah, you're going to have to use vacuous energies. Like maybe you don't really give a crap about your studies or your grades. It's going to be hard to tap into radiant motivation around it. And so this is why, like in many ways, the radiant path is scarier for people, because it forces them to actually figure out, what do they want? What do you really want? Who do you really want to be? What's really important to you? And a lot of people, they look inside and they don't see an immediate answer, and that fills them with terror. And so they just go back to what they know and just go back to trying to force themselves, be a slave driver to themselves and make themselves be better. But that's only going to get you so far, I think, unless you go full sociopathic. And then even at that point, I think you're going to be very unhappy because, like, again, don't know a person's heart. Like, I don't know Michael Jordan. Like, how happy is he? I mean, he hasn't seemed to have found a tremendous amount of success since basketball. And if he's that competitive, how happy is he? If like, how happy would you be knowing that, like, the chances of Michael Jordan being Michael Jordan in another domain, so slim, right? It's possible. Maybe he'd start something where he is just the top again. But if it's like your pinnacle is in the past and you define yourself by your status, well, then the rest of his life, how happy do you think he is? How fulfilled do you think he is? And so that's the thing, is like, if you're playing on that radiant perspective, there's always a new game. There's always a new way in which you can seek to align yourself and the world to reflect the dignity of yourself and the other people around you. Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that regard. So I think it's just a much better game to learn how to tap into your dignity.
Why does that motivational source, that vacuous motivation, because from the outside, everybody looking in at Michael Jordan's life, I mean, he's a multimillionaire He's considered the greatest basketball player of all time, and yet even he describes this sort of energy inside of him as a curse. Why would Michael Jordan consider this a curse if he's got millions of dollars and he's considered the greatest in his domain? Why does that not lead to happiness?
Because at the end of the day, that's not what he wants. He wants to be the best. And he knows that he doesn't have full control over that. That's something that he had to go through hell to be. And he also likely knows that he's not going to get there again. Right? And so it's just one of those things where it's like once you're really tapped in to extreme performance in some regard, like you're really trying to be the best in something, the secondary stuff is secondary. Like the money, the fame, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, what do you care? Like that wasn't your goal. Your goal wasn't to be the richest basketball player in the world. Your goal was to be the best. And so it's like, if it's not your goal, then it's not going to provide the full sweetness. So,
and once that goal is done, once he's achieved it, like what else does he have to do? Actually, it would be interesting to see what guys like that do, just as a daily routine. I know there's a Beatles documentary, and I think Ringo Starr was asked, what do you do all the time? And he's like, I just sit around and watch daytime television. And it's like, well, if you want to do that, that's great. Like, I'm not judging Ringo, right? But it's just interesting that these guys who achieve, maybe that's why. Maybe it's because it's like it's a one and done. You do it, you win your 6 rings, go 6 for 6, and then it's like, okay, well now what? Now I have the majority of my life to live out. What am I living for? Is it over? Is that the best?
I think it's like, well, once you reach that like such a high level in one thing, and it was such a price to get there, that like, why would you try something else? Right? Like it's almost like I feel like if you're coming at it from this place of conditional worth, why even put yourself in the position to fail? Right?
Right.
So it's like Ringo Starr. It's like, why would he go and try and do something else? Nothing's going to compare it to the Beatles, at least if you're coming at it from this vacuous mentality. And it's like, well, what if you weren't? What if you were able to see that your success in that previous thing actually didn't make you any better, and failing in the future doesn't make you any worse? Then you just have, well, I now have all these resources that I can use to play this game however I want. I can actually do more exciting things. I can find a new adventure. I can find something else to get into trouble with. And so that's the way I would want to approach it. Maybe this whole show becomes massively successful one day. Well, if I don't want to keep doing it, I hope I find something else to I know I'll find something else, because I'm never going to just be the person who sits around, because it's like the world's not heaven yet. Until it's heaven, you got shit to do. And it's like, if you're not doing that, well, then you're not channeling the will of God, because that's the whole thing. Is like, it's supposed to bring this kingdom to earth. It's like we're trying to make this place as good as we possibly can. And until it's that, the fuck are you doing just sitting around watching daytime TV? I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for having a more relaxed season in life, but come on, be a man.
Wait, so you're saying when this show's really successful, you're not going to spend the rest of your days just watching daytime television?
Unless I'm reacting to it, and then we're making content out of it.
There we go. Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Let's see. You know what? We'll save this other. I think we did a pretty good amount of time. I'll save this other point for the next time. But
awesome.
I think that was pretty good. What you guys let us know what you guys think of this format. If you're enjoying the Man vs. World show, if you've got any ideas of things you'd like to see us react to, make sure you send it our way. Just put it in the comments for now. Eventually, we'll have a place where you guys can like send it all into. But I think this is fun. It's a lot easier making content like this, and I'm still making much more structured, dynamic, focused stuff. It's just having this roll out. Like, basically I get to show up and Pete feeds me clips and I just get to go off. That's so much easier than what I was doing. And it frees me up to use that super high level creative time to just focus on making like really polished pieces that are designed to generate a very specific result, movie from point A to point B. Like, it took me years to get, the Reforged Man course for helping guys quit porn together, because I was always juggling all these other things. Well, I think, I'm actually in the process of getting the next one going, and it shouldn't take nearly as long. So that's one of the biggest values here. So make sure you stay tuned to the project, because we're going to have a lot of new information rolling out here soon about the Vanguard. Got some exciting new direction that hopefully this whole system will be solidifying and being much more reliable, and I'll be known for my consistency rather than, to put politely, my dynamicism of changing paths. All right. Any final thoughts from you, Pete?
Guys, the time that Mark is saving by doing this show is going to... He's not watching daytime television with this extra time, okay? I get a little sneak peek preview. I'm very fortunate to have that. Just stay tuned, guys. We got some cool stuff coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Ooh, yeah.